Hello and welcome to Love Through It. I am so excited about today's guest. Adrienne White is a friend. She is an actress, writer, producer. She teaches online courses on how to actually sell TV shows organically. She's a former client and she is just a force to be reckoned with. Welcome, Adrienne. I'm so happy to have you.
Lianna, I'm so happy to be here. This is seeing you amplify your voice. I'm like, I just want more. This is everything.
Well, it's so funny that you should say that because I was about to say you specifically, I wanted to have on the podcast because you are one of the women that I look up to for how you show up in the world. And I want to amplify your voice. I feel like what you are doing, how brave you are, what you have created with your career, which we will get into. You are just the type of woman that I want to see succeed. And this is why I love what I do so much, because at the core of it, I feel like a lot of it's empowerment work. So when we started to work together in a more professional way, that was incredibly exciting. So I'm here to amplify your voice as well. And I'm just very excited about that.
That makes me feel really special because you're so gifted at helping women tap into their power, like truly, deeply. I thought, when we've known each other as friends for many years. So when our one-on-one conversation, I was like, wow, she's really like shifting how I'm showing up in the world. We have a really special relationship. And then in the group setting, I watched you do it for some people. I was like, oh, she's just incredibly talented at this.
Oh, that's
okay.
So
and
nice.
We're special. We're still special.
Oh, we definitely are. We definitely are. Yeah, this is going to just be an entire podcast where Adrienne and I are just being like, you're pretty. No, you're pretty. No, you're pretty.
To be fair, we are both pretty.
That's true. It's true. So Adrienne and I met, gosh, how many years ago was that? 10?
Girl.
More?
So we graduated in 2011. So it would have been
8, 9?
2009. 2009, yeah.
Yeah, a minute ago. So she and I attended the Atlantic Theater's acting conservatory in New York City. 2.5 years of crying, crawling around on the floor. I mean, it's the weirdest. You do the weirdest shit in acting school.
Funny thing is, to me, it didn't seem weird at the time at all. It wasn't until I interacted with my friends from college and told them, they're like, you're doing what? And I was like, oh, is this not what you're doing at Mackenzie?
Right.
Are you not crawling on the floor?
And yeah, so that was such a beautiful point in my life. And I feel like I take so much of that work. I bring that into what I do now in terms of like embodiment practices and helping teach people how to like going to all of those, voice classes and the movement classes. Like that was such an interesting experience as someone who I used to really, really live in my head and be in anxiety. Like through Atlantic, I learned how to inhabit my body in this interesting way. And so much of that I bring into working with clients now.
It makes so much sense because I think acting school and Atlantic in particular, I'm sure it's true of other acting schools too. It must be. But I think there's something really interesting around a place where you're specifically there to tap into your emotions and to use your body as an instrument. Have to have a really strong relationship with those just in order to show up in your job. So it's like a very special place. I almost wish more people, I feel like everyone should have 6 months in acting school. I
think everyone
should the stuff.
I completely agree. Just because even beyond that, it's like, it teaches you how to listen. Really? And read people. Are you kidding? And I remember being there being like, because I had been acting a bit before that. I had been in the space for a while and I was like, this is what I'm doing forever. I love this. But also being like, you know what? Even if I don't, these are skills that I'll have for the rest of my life. And it's true. Listen, understand how to deeply listen and read other people. There's nothing more powerful.
Absolutely. Learning how to read other people and learning how to read yourself.
Yes.
Having that, knowing how you are connected to what's happening around you and how you feel about it. I think so many people don't know how they feel about things generally. We're in a culture that teaches us to numb and that not to feel inconvenient feelings. And I think acting, so often your job is to feel the inconvenient feelings that other people aren't willing to feel, right? Like it's a cathartic experience for the audience, but you have to have the experience for yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel, yeah, I'm really glad we got to share that space
I
all those years
know.
ago.
All of those years ago. That was like one of the highlights of my life, like just dedicating 2.5 years to like really getting to look internally and be creative and connect with other people. It's funny though. It's like our class, we started with like 50 or 60 and ended with 16 over the course of 2.5 years, something like that.
Like, I would say like half, like it was like like maybe 35
really?
or 40. Yeah.
Really?
It wasn't,
because
it was always
300 people that started.
Because we started as 2 classes. So and you were in the other class that first year. So I didn't see you as much, but the 2 classes together were like 30, 35 people. Okay. Because then so it was like half of it. So half people stayed.
Okay. Yeah. I'm making it sound way more elite. I was like, you guys, there were 3,000 people. We made it to the end. We are very special. Numbers are not my thing. But it was so funny because you do go through so much internally that you feel like these people are your family on the other side of it. You know, it's such an interesting, but anyway, I would love to just give us a tiny little picture into who you are, where you're from. You're in LA now. You grew up in St. Louis. Give us like tiny brief backstory about Adrienne.
Okay, the tiny. Born in Long Beach, grew up in Chesterfield, Missouri. Almost as exciting as it sounds. When I got there, I was very grateful. I had a childhood where I could, there was a farm at the end of the road. There was a creek across the street. We could really run around. I'm very grateful for that. But I also felt, I miss being closer to like lots of water and like lots of diverse people. And I know this is the place right now, but this won't be the place forever. So I went to college on the East Coast. I felt like I spent my life working on academics up until I was 22. I was very
you can motivated. Say where you went to college, smarty pants.
No, it's fine. It's not relevant. So
now you have to.
I went to Harvard. It's fine. So, but by the end of that, I felt like I had really been so motivated by, getting good grades, which it was great, but I really felt like I had neglected my body and my spirit. So I went to Korea and continued to neglect it, working as a tutor, but that was great. And that's when I realized that I really needed to take a different course. So I quit my job, went to India, lived on an ashram studying yoga, hosted a talent show, which is a whole story. But that was where I really realized that performing helped me be my best, most present self. And that I was in my purpose when I was performing and of service to others. Because I turned the talent show into like a little variety show where I'd like introduce people and make up monologues and sketches between the things and like get other people on. So it was always about hyping the audience and hyping the other performers. And that felt really good. So from there, I went to Atlantic and then in New York. And then I came out to LA, where at first I worked at a boutique production company that made reels for actors. So I got it was kind of like my grad school because I was writing, producing, directing, doing all the things and just learning how to do it in a really tight time frame. I also did a short film called Mira Mira that I shot in New York and in Brazil because I was crazy, because you're 22 and you're like, I can do anything. So I took my flip camera because phones did not have cameras back then. And I shot a movie on my flip cam that ended up winning a couple of awards and going to different festivals. And that was also my grad school. So from there, I connected with my writing partner at the time, or my creating partner at the time, Ali Chan. We did a web series called Quirky Female Protagonist, which was a loving send-up of female-centric comedy. That got into festivals, that got into Huffington Post. That led to us optioning our first show, which led to selling our first show, which since then I've optioned or sold, I think, a total of 5 shows.
Amazing. That's amazing. Can we just like stop for a second? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Thanks. It's one of those things where it was a really organic process. And so when I noticed how people were teaching approaches to the industry and screenwriting and the like, I saw a lot of courses on how to write a good script, which is really important. Yeah. But I actually didn't see a lot on how to put together and sell a TV show, which is different. And much more accessible. You actually don't have to be a writer to create and sell a TV show, which a lot of people don't know.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely do it as an actor, as a director. You just decide what role you want on the project and then start to fill in the other roles that you aren't. So when I realized I kept taking people out to coffee, and I was like, it'd be faster than taking people out to coffee. Just having you can just go here and here's all the information at once.
Oh, right. Because it was after you were selling shows, people were like, how did you do it?
There's a lot of like, how'd you do it? How was this?
Oh God, I know. Which is so great, right? To some extent. But like whenever you're doing something a little cool and different, everyone's like, hey, can I have like 5 minutes? And you're like, at a certain point, I need to start charging for this.
Yeah, it's like, I really love doing this, and there has to be a way to do it that's sustainable for me and sustainable for other people. So I started to find this way. And, I have my very first mentee in 6 weeks. I helped her get yeses from Netflix and Paramount. That's when I really realized, okay, I got something here. I got to like amplify this beyond what I can just do by having coffee with someone once a month.
Right. So. That makes sense. Let's back it up a little bit. And I'd love to just talk about, as she's briefly mentioned, we've worked together professionally. She did my group program, and I'd love to talk about what drew you to me and the program and working together, and just like chat a little bit about what that experience was like and what that led to for you, or essentially what you got out of it, I guess.
Oh, that's a great question. So what drew me to it? There were a couple of things. So first of all, we obviously knew each other, but I would say in the months leading up to when you were having the next like group go through, I went through a really bad breakup, a really painful breakup. And, I know you talked a little bit about how you had overcome, sort of transitioning out of the marriage that you had been in.
Yep.
And so seeing you go from sort of a place where you weren't able to be your whole self.
Yeah.
And I was at a time where I wasn't able to be my whole self, and just to see what you had accomplished, what you had built for yourself, and what you had helped other women build.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's something really special here that I'm not tapped into right now, and that I really want to get tapped into again.
How long was that relationship? It was that you were in?
Well, it's funny because I was in a 5-year relationship. So that was sort of the substantive one. And then the relationship after that was
there was like a pretty toxic one right after.
Exactly. It was really the toxic
double whammy right there.
Double whammy. I was like, oh, I got 2 things to process and very few tools to process them.
It's so hard with that stuff though, right? And this is like coming back to so much of the work I do with like the idea of like everything affects your health, and the primary foods, relationships to me being the most important. I kind of feel like we're just here to love each other, and we teach each other the biggest lessons by being in relationship, whether it's romantic or otherwise. And we don't get tools. No one ever teaches you how to like, I don't know. I feel like I came out of, and your parents do the best you can. And I feel like it's almost society, right? Where it's like women aren't taught to ask for what they need. And, we aren't taught what to do when things fall apart, or when, even with friendships, right? Like, I feel like the older I get, the more you see like navigating what happens when friendships evolve or end and all of that stuff. So it's just interesting. You can be so accomplished and educated, and then this one part of your life that's arguably one of the most important, like we have no idea what we're doing.
I'm really excited for Gen Z because they seem to be a generation that's super tapped into emotional life, and how that isn't separate from everything else in life, that it's deeply interconnected. It's not this thing that you can kind of shaft away into the corner.
I know communication seems better too. Yeah. I've been like dabbling with dating a bit younger these days, and the communication is very good.
You now robbing the cradle, you just rocking it a little bit.
Wait, I love that. Just rocking it a little bit. I might be in my cougar era, right? I don't know if I'm old enough, but like, we'll own it.
You're a puma.
Ooh.
I wrote a pilot about this once. It was like pumas. It was like the women in their 30s.
Oh, I like it. I like that. That feels sexier than a cougar somehow too.
Yeah. No, a puma is sleek. Like,
right? Here I'm wearing black. It feels really right.
I'm getting a very feline vibe. And
Yes.
I will, and just back to your earlier point, I will also say, I think we're building on previous generations. Cause I would say, like, when I think of my parents, they graduated college in the 70s.
Mhm.
I think that they did a lot. I've talked to my other sort of millennial friends, and we're like, our parents did the best they could, and they let go of a lot of things that their parents used to do. So I think, they did the best job they could, and it's our turn to pick. Like, this was the area that they didn't have the tools to work on yet. I think they did I know my parents went through, like, it was the 60s and 70s. So, like, a lot around race in the United States and the like, and learning how to create a safe container within that. And they
gender roles, in terms of like women. And it was interesting. It's been funny because of the pandemic. I've spent a lot more time with my parents. And it is interesting because my mom grew up in Asia and my dad just grew up a man. So neither one of them had a lot of tools around like emotional expression. And I don't know how I came out to be like the most sensitive, delicate flower ever. And there was not a lot of support around what to do with that as growing up. And it's been funny as an adult spending time with them and just like being more open with this stuff. And it's allowed them to open up in interesting ways. So it's cool. It's like, I feel like with every generation, as you continue to connect, it's like you're evolving consciousness forward.
That's what I was going to say. I think there's a big push towards actually recognizing the parts that we have not been healing in ourselves and the areas that we haven't seen. And yes, there's this collective consciousness movement to start or to more deeply engage with these questions.
Yeah.
One last thing. I'm so
sorry.
Go for it.
There's no apologizing here.
Okay, I'm not sorry. I don't know if you guys remember, and I mean, this was before my time too. I just happened to remember an SNL video from, I think it was the 80s. It had Stuart Smalley. I forget who plays him.
Yes.
And
the blonde
like
guy.
Michael. Yeah. He's like, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and doggone it, people like me. And I was like, oh, there was a push towards this years ago that kind of like petered out. And I feel like there's this renewed interest in that kind of affirmative
self-help.
work.
Yeah.
It
was around. It continues to evolve. I always joke, I'm sure, I may have already talked about this on this podcast. Oh, it was
Al Franken. I knew it was Al something. I just couldn't.
Yes,
and I think he's very funny. I just couldn't think of his name.
But man, it's funny that it's funny and not funny that I ended up in this space, because when I don't know about you, but like being an artist in general and following any sort of creative pursuit, especially acting, it's so hard. All you hear is no, there's no linear path. It's one of those careers where everyone tells you it's a terrible idea. And, you have to, because there's so much inherent rejection in the structure of it. It's so hard not to feel bad about yourself. So I feel like so much of my 20s was I was living in near Union Square. I was going to the Barnes and Noble. I was like bartending part-time. I was a broke actress. And I would go into Barnes and Noble and I would just like an arm full of self-help books and go sit on the floor in the travel section, because I couldn't afford all the books and I decided which one I wanted, but I knew there was nothing sadder than an out of work actress sitting on the floor of the self-help in like the middle of the day on a Tuesday. But yeah, it's always been my drug of choice. I just think people are fascinating, and like understanding yourself and others. It's so important.
It's so important. And it really does. It's like funny because it's in those difficult moments that we do that deeper work, but then that is the deeper work that helps us get to those bigger, more exciting moments when we have the tools, right?
Right. Well, because as humans, we don't change unless we're incredibly uncomfortable. Like we will stay in that comfort zone. It feels really nice in there. So unless things get hard, and this is why, embracing struggle is such a good idea, because on the other side of it is, the life that you've been looking to build. You just need
and
to
dare I say it.
ways.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
You said embracing the struggle, and I said, and dare I say it, loving through it.
That's exactly right. So going back to, so here you are, and it was interesting because it's funny with this work that I'm doing. It's like I've been in this business for like 10-ish years. I've had this business for like over 7. It started out, well, it was a very holistic, health business initially, but it has evolved in these interesting ways where, okay, I lost my train of thought. Bringing it back, Claire. This is where editing is so good.
Wait, you were saying
we're talking about love through it.
Oh, it's been a winding journey to get here.
It's been a winding journey to get here.
The business has evolved many times. It started holistically, but it started more towards an acting thing, is what I think you were saying.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. So it's, yeah. Okay. So I'll back it up. Let's get back to our story. Yeah. Cool. Let's just do that. Okay. So let's bring it back to, here you are, you're seeing me expanding in these different ways, right? Listening to myself, following a different path, which essentially is, at the core, what I'm trying to do with people here. And you're sort of called to, I remember we started just having like friendly phone calls.
Yes, we have friendly phone calls where you would just casually change my life. I still remember you were just dropping, like you would drop like another nugget where I'm like, oh, I got to sit with this nugget for a while and like investigate this. And so when it came, I think it was the beginning of the year, you were like, okay, I'm doing the next cohort, no pressure, but I think you'd be a great fit for this. And, I had not invested in myself in that way before. Mm-hmm. And especially at that time, I sort of had like I just felt really low. It felt like many things that I had expected to work out in a particular way hadn't. And so I just was hitting a moment in my life where I thought, God, I just thought I'd be somewhere else.
Yeah.
At this
oh my gosh. Age. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that was me at 35, right? I was
that like, was whoa. Me at that. Look at this. No, that was me at 30.
It's so interesting. I'm seeing this with especially women in their mid-30s, like all 30s, but mid-30s especially. At 35, I was like, I have everything I thought I ever wanted, and like to a degree, right? And it doesn't feel as good as I thought it was, and I feel like I'm suffocating from the inside. Like I've used my brain to get me here, right? All of the way, maybe despite my intuition of my body. And then like nothing feels good. And then that's where I sort of jumped off the cliff and pivoted. So it's so interesting. Yeah. So 35, You're like, I thought I was supposed to be somewhere else.
Yeah. Like this isn't it. And I had also, I think like a lot of, not all, but I would say many high achieving women in the United States who came up in the 90s and new millennium. I think I know I had an eating disorder in high school. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to a lot of other women who showed up and especially feeling like, oh, I want to get everything right. I want to do everything right and do everything correctly. Like there tends to be a history or at least some relationship to having had an eating disorder. And so I hadn't had specifically an eating disorder since then, but I had done every diet in the book. Like I was on every diet trend when it happened, which I think is related to that. And in that, I would say in that shorter, more toxic relationship specifically, I lost my appetite completely. And it was this funny thing where I had lost a bunch of weight. So I looked the way I had always thought I wanted to look. But my relationship to food was really, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my relationship to this is anymore. And I don't know, I felt like I didn't know how to cook anymore. I didn't know how to eat anymore. And I just felt a little bit lost. And so I, like I said, I hadn't invested in myself like that at the time. And I thought, I think this is a cliff I need to jump off of. Like, I think this is something that is going to be a path to getting more in touch with what I actually need. So I still remember when I like, rustled up the funds and I was like, I want to do it. And as like from the very first session, I was like, this was the right decision.
Oh,
this was
that's so good.
And it was so funny because I was just like, oh, is this the right time? Like I'm going to do a Vipassana meditation retreat at some point. Like, should I be doing, and I was like, no, I think she came into my life at this moment for a reason. I think these are tools that are going to really serve me. And so one thing I took away was, timing is never perfect. Sometimes you have to just go when you're called to do it.
Yeah.
And that I am worthy of investing in. Really.
Yes. That's you're saying all these things that I have so many women reach out to me and they have such a hard time feeling worthy of the time and the money. And you know what I mean? It feels selfish, which is so sad because like that kind of investment in yourself really affects everything else and everyone else in your life beautifully. So cheers to you for just like taking that leap because it can be very scary.
It was, I mean, I remember I like when, because I was like, we're friends. Like, it's not like I won't be able to talk to her. And I was like, no, but I really want her full offering and I want the real deal. I mean, that, all the deals are real, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean though. It's a very different space and the community space, it's very different. It's very different.
I loved the community. And it was so interesting because I thought you had this really cool variety of women in it, where there were sort of a lot of women who, lived, I think our cohort had a lot in Texas. Who were moms who had families. And then you also had a lot of women who were, on the coast and like tended to be single and in our 30s. So it was like, I feel like all of us kind of got to look through the looking glass and see like the road not taken. In a way that was really cool and supportive and nurturing for everyone involved. Like, and it made me realize also, I had felt like I maybe missed a boat or something. And then when I saw all these other women who were navigating a lot of the same things of getting back in touch with themselves and making time with themselves and like figuring out their next steps. And I realized, having a family or not having a family is a piece to a life that we all make decisions about whether we want or not, but we still have our own internal work regardless. Like, I thought that was a destination. And I was like, that's not a destination. That's part of the journey that I may or may not take. But I still got to be with me regardless of whether that part happens. And they were like, we got to learn to reconnect to ourselves also. So it was really, I mean, what a community. What a great, great, great community.
Yeah. I mean, the group stuff is so interesting too, because I always feel like it's so incredibly divine, just the combination of people, because it's like everyone brings something special that I feel like everyone has something to teach you. And even me, I feel like from every time I do this, it's like there's someone shows up with something different and it's expansive in such a cool way. So yeah, it's not just like learning from me, it's learning from your peers, which when you're watching people do well, which is kind of, I guess, what drew you to me. So I'm like, look, I left and look at me. My life is better. Like I'm following my dreams. But when you see other people do it, I think it's so inspiring.
It really is. It really is. And you led us so well too. Like you were very deliberate in how you created that digital space. And the lessons that you gave were so potent. And I would say I really healed so much of my relationship to food.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. Like, do you remember when you were able to really enjoy food and cooking and like how that issue kind of started to heal and resolve for you?
Yeah, I remembered it. We pretty early on, we did that 10-day sugar detox. Yeah. And you gave us some recipes. And there was also like this recipe thread in the group where people would share. And I think that was part of me rediscovering like the creativity in cooking. Yes. Because it's, I remember at that time, my fridge before this course or before the work, my fridge was empty. And when my friends came to visit me, I was like, your fridge was never empty. You always had colors and things. But like, I just was in a place where I didn't feel inspired and I just felt lost. And so I remembered in the first week, I was like, my fridge is back. Like the robust colors and all the vegetables. And I started having like ideas of what to do with them again, because you laid out things so well. And that was a major point. And then you also were so great at sharing about, like how eating usually like cravings tend to come from an emotional place.
Yes.
Like sitting and feeling that emotion and recognizing it for what it is. And then sometimes you still decide to have the mac and cheese.
Yeah.
I actually last night had that experience. It's like, I'm stressed because I'm about to go on a trip. I have not packed. I have to sort out my dog. I have a podcast tomorrow. I'm going to make half a box of mac and cheese. And I was like, this is emotional. I'm not hungry right now, but it will soothe me and I'm going to do it. And I did it, but I felt like I had such a different relationship to it because of your work. Because I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to make this choice right now. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it. This isn't how I eat all the time. And I'm going to, because I've been conscious of it, tomorrow, I'm really going to think about where the other ways I can support myself. So it changed my relationship to like punishing and being mad at myself for the ways I could use food to soothe, and also using food tools besides food to soothe.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
because
like
at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just doing it consciously. And like here you have this new conscious tool around food.
Exactly. And like, I can decide when, all right, the food is the quick thing to soothe, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, you know what, today I have time. I'm going to sit down. You had so many great self-care practices, but, and one of them for me, I love now taking a shower and just being really conscious during it and feeling the water on my skin. I mean, like letting that soothe. Or like kind of, you said something and tell it to me again, but it was something, if it's sweet in my head.
This is my favorite thing. I would say this like it's from Martha Beck, who is, I'm in love with her. I think she's just so charming and hilarious and brilliant, but decision making, right? Because so much of what we do is getting people out of their heads and into their bodies, because of course we're brought up in a culture that's like, oh, read a diet book, eat what everyone else is eating. Like, don't consult your own body, go outside of yourself, do the latest diet thing, never think about how you actually feel, right? So the work really is, and which is why it tends to be transformative in different areas, is it makes you listen to yourself. So much of, especially like starting the detox, it's a way for people to see how food makes them feel physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. And we get into like, how do you explore a yes and a no in your body? And how do you get out of your overthinking when you find yourself in anxiety? How to get out of that and into making decisions? Because your brain will come up with so many different reasons why or why not to do things. When you can tap into your body and learn how to listen, it just says yes or no. Pretty much, right? Like there's no spiraling. There's just a sensation and a clarity. And and I used to tell people, I'm like, well, if it feels good in like a nourishing way, it's a yes, but it feels good, like eat a whole cake. And I'm like, okay, this isn't a great way to decipher it. And then Martha Beck, I heard this, I think it was last summer. And I was like, this is exactly what I've been trying to communicate. 3 questions. So if you're not sure about something, you check in with yourself. Does it feel like sweetness in my heart, peace in my gut, and freedom to my soul? And what that means, how I break that down is there a tug on your heart? Is there desire, right? Is there a desire? And usually if you're considering something, yes, there's always desire. And then you do the gut check. Do I feel peaceful? Like, do I feel calm in my tummy, or is it constricted and like tight? Is like a tightening or a heaviness? And then does making this decision, and again, we're feeling into it, not thinking about it. Does it make me feel more free or less free? You know, does it give me that feeling of expansion, or do I feel really constricted by something? And honestly, it's literally, if you just made decisions that way for the rest of your life, you would be so happy and healthy. Because your body is full of wisdom. It's never going to lie to you. But yeah. That is my favorite.
And I think that is first of all, I'm going to take that everywhere. And it's funny, I've been when you had shared that a couple weeks ago, and I've been telling everyone, I was like, I can't remember what the 3 things are, but check in with these 3 things. So I'm going to remember that.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing is like learning to trust my body, because I had learned to outsource that power to diets, to like other recommendations. Like I had always learned, okay, I crave things. And when I do the things I crave, you know, whatever, I'll get fat, I'll be tired, I'll be unhappy. So don't do what I'm craving, do whatever prescription someone has laid out for me.
Right.
And so learning in the course how to trust my body, which is really what we want, right? Like we most people, when you go on a diet, it's not because you want to be on the diet forever. It's because you want to you're like, oh, once I do this, I'll be perfect. And then I can live the rest of my life.
Right.
And it's like, actually, if you can tap into living the rest of your life now, your body will tell you what it needs, and then you can do that. And so I remember by the end of it, I was still skinny, but I had the relationship where I was like, oh, this is no longer like a thing that happened to me because I was so sad. It's now like, oh, I can listen to my body. My body tells me what I need, and I respond to that. And there's like this really great flow to how I'm showing up and eating and the like. And you also gave tools to tap back in, because of course, you find flow at one like stage of life, and then new stimulus comes in and you're like, oh, I'm out of whack again. And it's like, okay, but now I have tools to see, how do I get back into flow?
Yeah. Like, how do you stay connected to yourself? And it's interesting because I teach it this way because yes, so many, not just women, so many of us we're not taught to trust our bodies. We're really even like subconsciously and consciously told not to, and that there's something wrong and we need to buy something and smell better and weigh less and wear these underwear that make you skinnier. And, like, everything's wrong with you. Everything's wrong with you. Everything's wrong with you. So to learn to actually trust that your body has all this wisdom is liberating on a level that is unbelievable. But doing it through food, not only makes you healthier and makes it easier to like yourself, but it's a very simple way, right? Because like if you're lactose intolerant or something, it's like and you eat dairy, like your body's very loud, and starting to listen to that, starting to really listen to that, and that trust goes beyond food, and you start like trusting the rest of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So here you are in a beautiful space around feeling better in your body, and like post, what did that really lead to in your life afterwards, post program?
It led to a whole bunch of things. So part of it was getting tapped into myself again. I realized that I needed to leave my old side hustle job, this business that I had built for myself, where I was tutoring during the evenings so that I could act and write during the days. And, I was keeping it going because it had felt safe, because it was sort of like a security blanket at this tumultuous time. Right.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, this is one thing I know I do well. And, I love my students and all that kind of stuff. And it was through this, I really realized that it was an old shirt that didn't fit anymore. Like it had its moment, and that it wasn't the thing. And I realized, like I said, like I was out selling TV shows and then, but like also tutoring at night, just to like keep it, just in case, guys, just in case it
didn't work out. I'm not trusting myself totally.
Exactly. So I realized that it was time to let that go. And I decided to focus on building a business that was more in alignment with what I believe I'm here to do in this life, which is help people create authentic connections beautifully. Like that's what I create authentic connections beautifully. And I love doing that through storytelling, through TV and film. So I realized, okay, it's time to actually do this and start to amplify the impact that I could have. And I can very much trace that back to taking your course and seeing how you helped everyone kind of step into their voices and their power. And I realized I could do that in the way that I do it in a professional context.
Yes. That's so beautiful. I mean, that's crazy. That blows me away that, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, speechless. I mean, it's been beautiful to watch you. I always feel like when I get people connected to themselves, I just watch them blossom into these beautiful flowers. And like, that's what I feel like I've been watching from afar since we worked together.
Like I said, and literally like the first round of the course, I've gotten like a little bit fancier now, but the very first one that I did later that year was like it was all over Zoom, and the people would ask me, oh, where are you teaching? And I was like, on Zoom. And they're like, how did you know you could do that? And I was like, because Lianna did it and it kicked ass. And like, we all live better lives after. So let's just do it. And so you were really an expander for me for how to Like, and even how to start to share that that's what I was doing. Like when I didn't really post on social, I still don't post on social media very much. That's something I actually want to grow into, because it's funny. And everyone has their own relationship to social media. I think you have to be really in touch with yourself so that you show up in the body way, if you choose to, that's a thing that you want to engage with.
Yeah.
But at least with me, I realized that I was so used to being an actress, which is taking someone else's words or someone else's ideas and bringing them to life, but not having to take any responsibility for them because I didn't write it. Or like being I am a writer as well, obviously, but I generally was more of an actress and showed up on social media as more of an actress. And so putting things out that were like my actual, like what I thought and what I believe, that was a big thing, that watching you like be yourself on social media, I was like, oh, I don't have to only share the pretty dinners and the sunsets and dresses and all this sort of thing. I can actually say what's on my mind. And that felt that still feels scary to me. That's something where I'm like choosing to engage with social media because I'm like, oh, this is some work I have to keep doing because it's really important. And you were definitely a big guiding light on how to do that in a way that's like authentic and embodied.
Wow. That's like really powerful to hear. And, it's just a testament, right, to like being yourself and how much like, it doesn't matter what it is, but like whatever your thing is, like you got to go after it, because just me being like my weirdo self on social media, like, I mean, I think you're so bright and talented and beautiful. And like, I have this high opinion of you as well. And it's funny to be like, oh, wow, look at me just being my weirdo self is helping even the most amazing people. Like, what I mean? It's humbling, and it's very, makes me want to cry, but what doesn't, honestly. So, in the spirit of the podcast, as we know, Love Through It, I would love to know at this point, because you have been introspective and working on yourself. And I think everyone, once they tap in, starts to build their own toolkit. I would love if you're open to sharing with us any tools that you have. Like, where do you go when things are hard and you need to pivot and reconnect to yourself? Or dare we say it again, love through it? Do you have any simple tools or recommendations, mental reframes? Like, how does Adrienne get back on track when things feel hard or overwhelming or you're disappointed?
It's a great question.
And it could just be a little bit, it doesn't, you know what I mean? It could be something silly here and there. Whatever comes to mind.
Sure. There are two things I think of, because when I notice, especially, I'm like, oh, something happened and I'm like kind of upset and not even sure exactly why I'm upset.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of old impulses for me were around, oh, I'll go. And these are all great things to do. I'm not saying don't do these things, but like in the past, I would do something like, oh, let me eat something. Oh, let me call someone. Let me watch some TV. Let me read a book. Let me like make myself have a glass of wine, make myself a cocktail. And all of those things can be like, I'm not hating on any of those things. Those can all be appropriate responses. But I, in the last year, especially have started just when I'm feeling it, sitting down somewhere alone and just feeling it, just like noticing how it feels in my body and like allowing it to happen. Most emotions are like actually in pretty short duration when you just let yourself feel them and aren't trying to numb them.
Yes.
So
Martha says 90 seconds. It's like a contraction. Apparently contractions last 90 seconds, and really intense emotions will last 90 seconds, and they'll go down, they'll dip down, they may come back, but you can do anything for 90 seconds.
Yeah. And so I've had this like just bout of sadness. I think it was not this week, but last Wednesday. And I was about to put on, my favorite TV show. And I was like, wait, I'm gonna just feel it. So I just sat down and I felt it. And like I felt the sadness. And then this surge of kind of joy came after, because I was like, Oh, I have a tool. I know I wasn't like, oh, I can do this actually. And so it was so funny. I think I would have, if I'd watched a TV show, I would have enjoyed it. I would have gone to bed afterward. Like it would have been fine, but I actually had a much richer and better experience by letting myself actually feel the sad part and then like see what came after.
I love that. I mean, you heard it here very first. Adrienne says feel your feelings, but like truly, I always tell people, because I'm always encouraging of this, right? Like the only way out is through with emotions. And it literally, I feel like our society is based on just people make money on everyone trying not to feel things.
Yes.
And so if you can be brave and sit with what is and sit with your pain, you can do anything, right? It is like the thing that people are most afraid of. And if you are not afraid to feel that stuff, because that's what we're all running away from, you can create any life you want because you can just literally face your pain. And so like, thank you. That is the best advice. I would 100% endorse that and agree with it. And of course that you're doing as well as you're doing because you aren't afraid, right? And you can be with yourself.
Well, it's funny because I am afraid, but I have the courage to do it anyway.
Yes. So, yes. Yes.
So
well, I sort of meant aren't afraid of your feelings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yes, fear is always going to be there, especially when we do something new.
But even so, like I will have moments where I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel like, oh, I really don't want to feel this. Like I do feel that sometimes. And then I think now I know, oh, when I'm afraid to feel it, that's the thing I need to feel the most. It's like the fear is now an arrow in the direction I should go instead of the arrow of the direction I need to
It usually is too. It's like, ooh, that feels scary. Shit, I need to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, Adrienne, it's been such a pleasure. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to reconnect. I know you're so busy, so we don't get to do this very often. So it's so lovely to see your face. And it's so humbling. And I so appreciate you sharing your experience with me, working with me. And do you want to share a little bit about what you're up to and where people can find you and your next course and all of that?
Yes. So the next round of the course is starting May 1st. And
this is for people who want to sell TV shows,
but this is for people who want to sell TV shows. So, and you don't have to be a creative necessarily to want to sell a TV show. I sold one to CBS last year. That was my lawyer friend came to me with the idea, came to me with the log line. We made it into a one sheet. We got like a really prominent exec producer. We got a great writer and we sold it to CBS. So it is, obviously I approach it as a writer, actress, producer, but you don't have to be that. You just have to be someone with a story that you want to tell, that you feel deeply connected to, that you can see, that you want to see on TV. Because whatever role you want to have on it, even if it's no role, even if it's, I just want to have this idea and see it through, I can show you how to build the team to actually make it happen and how to build all the material and the relationships so that you can get it sold.
That's amazing. So do you help people connect with people afterwards sometimes?
Yeah, well, I have two tiers of the course. So the starter tier is like all the information that you need and the videos and the templates. And I tell you how to connect with people and you go do it yourself. And the finisher tier, I actually introduce you to executives so that you can practice your pitch and get feedback. And they're the same executives who are hearing pitches so that, you got a relationship. They heard your pitch already. Like, it's good. It's good. So yes, so
exciting. Congratulations.
I love it because it's also like, I just want to see more of the shows we haven't seen before. And so that means talking to people who haven't made TV content before, right? That's how we get new stories on the air.
Yeah.
So that's called How to Actually Sell a TV Show Organically. And if you go to my website, somethingtrulybrilliant.com, there's more information there. And I have a bunch of events leading up to that too, like webinars on how to get your TV pitch seen. And I have a little community called In the Flow, which it's a digital co-working space. So we hop on once a week and work on our own projects and hold each other accountable to actually take next steps to get our shows sold. So if you're looking for community and accountability, that's totally free. You can hang out with me for an hour and we can get some shit done. Because Lianna said I could say shit. So I did.
I did. I already said it. So get shit done. Oh, Adrienne, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing. There are not enough women, especially women of color, putting their voices out there. So thank you for being such a beautiful expander for so many other people and helping elevate their voices as well. I mean, it's just been such a pleasure. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for being part of Love Through It and my Mind Body Elevate community.
Oh my God. I was so delighted when you asked me to be on this podcast. You've literally changed my life. You are one of the people I talk about all the time because you really helped me go from a rock bottom to just absolutely thriving. And I can't thank you enough. So anything I can do to help more people get to connect with you, I'm in it. I'm about it. Like, work with this woman. Like she'll change your life.
I swear you guys, I'm not paying her.
She's not. No, I'm literally, I can point to so many different ways that having you in my life and having you coaching me and sort of guiding me helped me tap into what was always inside me, but what I didn't know how to let out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And the world is a much better place for having you let it out there. All right. Send you so much love. Thank you, Adrienne.
So much love.
So you are doing something really exciting tomorrow. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have met someone new. And
full circle,
very, very full circle. And he is someone who has many of the pretty much all of the qualities that that I craved in previous relationships, but wasn't seeing.
Everything on your very intentional conscious list, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I'll give the very, very short version of it. Essentially, I decided I was ready to date again after a conversation with you. You're a big part of this. And
there was fear there. We uncovered or something, right? I remember.
Yeah, I had like a lot of fear and a lot of stories around dating again. And like, I was like, dating is hard. And you were like, is it though? Like, does it have like, I understand it has been, but does it have to be? And I was like, okay. I was home in Missouri, so visiting my parents for the holidays. So I was like, well, I'm not looking to meet someone here. Let me just read a romance novel until I get back to LA.
I love that was it's like, I'm not going to masturbate. I'm going to read a romance novel. Or maybe you did masturbate, but I love it. It's very like fancy of you. I'm just going to read a romance novel. I'm not going to go on apps.
I was definitely like a nerd in high school reading fan fiction. So like books are or reading is definitely my like go-to for comfort thing. So I couldn't find a book I liked. And I was all these books, I was like, this isn't even what I want. So I was like, let me just make in my head what I want. And so I thought to myself, let's do the CEO fantasy thing. Like, let's say he's like an Indian CEO of like a tech adjacent company, but he's done the emotional work. He's like just got back from a meditation retreat. Let's say she's Black. She's a consultant. She's used to working, behind the scenes, and sort of stepping into her full power. And they have like a slow burn. There's lots of sexual tension. So I like created this whole fantasy novel in my head while I was walking my dog. And then the next day I was like, I think I'm going to meet someone New Year's Eve. And my body was like, yep. And I was like, body, really? And my body was like, uh-huh. And I was like,
this is a girl who learned how to listen to her body, folks.
I know, exactly. And my body was like, bitch, don't worry about it. And I was like, bitch. And my body was like, bitch. I was like, okay. So it's like, I'm going to kiss someone New Year's Eve. I wonder who, I wonder when. I get to a dinner that a friend had planned, and listen, I'll just say it. Tell me why. And I had met someone earlier that day who was my type, but my old type, and I was like thinking like maybe this is the person, and I thought no, that's a test, and I'm showing up differently now, and I know what I actually want, and it's not what I used to want. So within a minute after in my head, I said, no. Tell me why a handsome Indian man walks and sits down at the table.
What?
By 11 p.m., everyone else leaves. And I was like, this was my plan for New Year's Eve. I have nowhere else to go. So we sat at a table. Tell me why he just got back from a meditation retreat.
What?
Tell me why he's president of an aerospace company.
Girl, you're powerful. You are powerful.
I can trace it back to advice that you gave me around doing manifesting work and in particular about being ready to date again. So.
Oh my gosh. I know I turned you on to the to be magnetic work, which we both like. Do you remember what the advice I gave you was? Because now I want to know.
Like the more, well, it was just what you said, where I was saying dating was hard and like I didn't know how to do it, and you being like, actually, it doesn't have to be. Yeah. And I was like, oh, and I know, I think you had also gone through a dating experience recently that hadn't been what you wanted it to be.
No.
And the fact that you were like, you had just gone through that and you were still like, dating doesn't have to be hard. And I was like, oh, because she thinks about it differently, which is like not living in fear of love, of like being willing to have the experiences and grow in them and then take the next step. And I thought that was just such an inspiring way to show up. And I realized I had, cocooned in a way that I really needed to for that year. But that it was time to start. It was time to start engaging again, that I was ready to.
Oh, I'm so happy that that's such a beautiful full circle story, just because you were drawn to me because of heartbreak. And then we got to close the loop and really pivot and reframe how you're looking at dating. Because falling in love is my favorite thing. Like, I love relationships. I love men. I love all of that stuff. And it doesn't matter. I feel like even if I get burned, it's like every single experience, I was like, oh, I really needed that. I didn't like how I received that lesson maybe, but I did really need that. And I love that we decided it wasn't going to be hard, and then it wasn't. So tomorrow, then what are you guys doing?
Right. So full circle. So, okay, this is the other little nugget I'm going to give. So at the beginning of the year, so this is after I met him, but before he invited me on anything, I in my like to be magnetic meditations and there's a safe space. Like, you go to your safe space to sort of calm your nervous system before you do the other work. So my safe space had been at the sort of, it was based on this Airbnb in Tulum that I had gone to that I really liked. And I just thought at the beginning of the year, I thought to myself, I'm ready for a new safe space. I don't want somewhere warm anymore. I want somewhere where it's cold outside, but warm inside. And like, I can see the snow and it's beautiful, but I'm comfortable. And like, it's a panoramic view and I can see the stars. So fast forward to early February, he said, I didn't know I'd meet you, so I planned all these trips. Would you like to come on one? Or he was like, do you want to come on any of them? And I looked and I was like, oh, Alaska, that looks interesting. After I said yes, heard from the travel guide, and what they described was the exact space I had been like doing as my safe space in the meditations.
Oh my God.
So I was like,
love it. You are obviously a specific manifester. You are obviously a very specific, I know we'll have to look at your arrows on your human design chart, but oh my gosh, that's so, I love it, Adrienne. Like, honestly, I couldn't be happier for you.
Thank you.
I couldn't be happier for you. Have the best time. So you're going to see the Northern Lights, right?
Yeah, we're going to go see the Northern Lights. And I think Chena Hot Springs is close by too. So we're going to go there. And he's just like a really delightful person that I enjoy spending time with. And I was like, oh, that's what this can be. It's been really nice. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow and beyond. Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, that makes my heart so happy. And I love that we were able to reframe that. And then it was easy. And we decided it was easy. And it was. And then have the best time. And then it was. Right? I mean, life shows up through the lens in which we choose to look. And that's such a beautiful example of that immediately happening, because you committed to it not being hard, and then it wasn't. We're so powerful. We are so powerful.
We are really, really powerful. And yeah. I like, again, I can trace, like, I would not have had these tools if you had not shown them to me, 2 years and a half ago now? Like,
Oh, wow. How your life has changed. Wow. 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 Like how embodied you are and confident and successful. I mean, it's just what a gift. It feels like such a gift to me, right? Because it's like the fact that I could, had any part of that is just incredibly humbling and makes me feel like I'm doing something right on this planet. So,
girl, you're doing something right. I can testify to that. Period.
Oh, love you, girl.
I love you.